Hey, what a beautiful moon. I love it. I love living in my town, Shreveport, Louisiana. It's across the Red River from beautiful Bossier City, Louisiana. And I'm CJ Miller. You come check us out. Always great things to do here. Yeah, uh, Red River Revel. Red River Revel is an art festival that's coming up. It's going to be here in I think about 2 weeks. I don't know. It'll certainly be here the week of the 22nd, 23rd, something. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, it's that particular week because I know that I'm going out of town during it. So I may get to it and I may not. Okay. Um, well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spin the camera around, sit down, and talk. Okay, so I have there you go. Run your face. Walk much? Okay, so I did the goofiest thing, but it was like, uh, it's like I was getting dressed to go out this evening with a friend, and it's like I got dressed and then realized that the boots that I was putting on, and he was like ready to go. Like, so the boots I was putting on were not going to work with the pants because the pants are not boot cut, and so this is what it looks like. There you go. So, and I made jokes. It was like, "Hey, I'm dressing like an old man," like when we just get dressed and we don't care. Like, we're not trying to put on outfits. We just put on clothes, and the whole idea is to wear clothes because we're expected to wear clothes. Otherwise, we would not wear clothes. It's like, and then he made the remark, "Yeah, you look like a 4-year-old. I've seen 4-year-olds dress better than." It's like, yeah, that was cool. So, yeah. But that's kind of cool. And it's not even like the kind, like if it were jeans that were a little too slender, you almost could work it or anything. I told him, I was like, it's kind of like I may as well be wearing shorts with these type of cowboy boots or whatever. It's that ridiculous. But whatever, If you're worried about my shoes, I'm so glad that your life is that wonderful. Just generically speaking, if you're worried about shoes. Anyone's shoes. You don't know. You've never walked in my shoes. Some people probably have walked in my shoes. I get some things at a thrift store. The occasional shoe. These were not at a place in town called Boot Barn. And I like Boot Barn. It's awesome. Okay. What am I doing? A friend of my friend may have someone coming in overnight to Dallas, and he's like, "What if I miss my connection?" And I'm like, "Well, And he's like, "Well," my friend was like, "We'll come pick you up at Dallas. We'll take you to Texarkana where your car is." And I'm like, "Cool, if you go, I want to go." So I may get to go to Dallas just on an overnight. I may not. But either way, one way I'm gonna have like super fun, and the other time the other way I'm gonna get super rest because I have to get up and go to a doctor's appointment. It's a new doctor, and I'm meeting it at 2 p.m. and it's basically just to establish care. But the reason why I'm excited for this doctor is because wow, and I mean wow. The work that they've done with my sister, who's had, various, medical concerns throughout her life, and in the last few years, this particular hospital system, it's Willis Knight, and they have done some remarkable life-saving work. On not just my sister, but on friends that I know. It's like. It's also like, what the hell is going on in Shreveport where people are needing this much heart care or whatever? But there's a lot of people that they help a lot of. They really do. Medically, they really provide a lot of help, and it's kind of top notch as far as their heart health programs and everything. But I'm excited. because it's like as I get older, I want someone who's experienced. If I have any of those issues, definitely, I have hypertension. Yeah, as we get older, we're gonna get that. That's high blood pressure for you, old-fashioned people. They might call it something new now. I don't know, but I'm excited. I'm excited. You know. My motivation is just, I always want to be a little, I want to take better care of my health. That's been my goal for some time now. For some years ago, I was told I was diabetic. First, I was told I was like pre-diabetic, and I'm like, yeah, but then it was like, 10 pounds later, it's like, you're diabetic now. And I'm like, okay. I can lose 10 or 15 pounds and not be diabetic. Well, it turned out I lost more than that. I literally lost about 40 pounds. And then that last 10 pounds of that, it kind of fluctuates and goes up and down throughout the thing. So technically, really, I would say maybe, realistically, a 30-pound loss in body fat. But I've also started, gym work, so I've muscle weighs more than fat, and so anytime you're adding resistant training, muscle growth, at the same time that you're reducing fat, you're going to have a slower, the weight of the muscle is going to come up while the weight of the fat goes down, and so you're getting healthier even if you're not losing as much weight as you want. So it's kind of like, but I stayed in close contact with the doctor, my primary physician, first at a clinic that basically it was a diabetic specialist, and that's why they kind of zeroed in on this, that I may not have known just going to a regular, just say a regular doctor's office or whatever, who may not have known to look for some commonalities that are not actually symptoms, but just like looking at, okay, cool, let's just for the sake of it, you kind of fit the pattern, and this goes in your family and stuff. So there's reason to look around to see if you might be developing diabetes type 2. So I'm very grateful for the doctor that I'm leaving to go to the new doctor. Very grateful for everything that he brought, but it's just that a lot of the people that he works with, a lot of the other clinics and everything like that they're not specifically hospital related. They're just like clinics, and it's like, imaging, Christopher Imaging, which there was a problem with, like, they take my Medicare, but they don't take Medicaid, which is my co-insurance, and so I'm getting, like that's my main thing. It's like, why am I not using the full benefit of my insurance by going through a hospital system that takes Medicare and Medicaid, So, yeah. And then also the new doctor, Dr. Thomas, I believe, is like, his work is great, and I know that because I know the work that he's doing, in the lives of other people that have gone to him. So, yeah, and it is kind of one of these places where it's also a teaching hospital. Sometimes you'll see the doctor, sometimes you might see a clinician. That is great. I have learned, there's one thing you have to do when you go to a doctor. Don't be afraid to communicate. Don't be afraid to talk. Don't be afraid to ask questions while that doctor or that nurse practitioner, that clinician, whoever is in your room that you're speaking with, they are yours for the time that they're there. So don't be afraid to take up some of their time, as long as it's not a waste of time. I mean, they're seriously, if you have something germane to talk about with your health, questions, especially we're a lot more focused, insurance companies are a lot more focused on preventative health because they've learned that preventing and staving off like health emergencies are so they are less expensive than uh, catching a health emergency. So preventative health is cheaper than, like, say, like giving somebody information and tools that can help them stay out of the hospital is so much cheaper than 3 weeks, I should say, in a hospital, and then if there's aftercare and all that kind of stuff. So it's can be a slippery slope. But I'm excited for that. It's the next level of self care that I'm embarking upon, and that's kind of cool. And that's the big news. That's the big thing I want to talk about. Just yeah, I don't know. I did see the bridge. I did not go down Friday night. I wanted to go down and see the Glow Fest. I keep saying I'm going to go there. Honestly, the reason why I'm staying home a lot more this month is because I'm about to go out of town, and I am saving spend money, pocket money for the vacation. That's, otherwise I'd be like just about everything. I didn't even go to GeeksCon this year, and the person I would have loved to have seen was Ernie Reyes Jr., who is today, a lot of people may not know who he is, but in the '80s, he kind of had a little bit of a following among teens, because he was a child martial artist, and he was great at what he did. And you'll see him in making small appearances in movies like Barry Gordon's The Last Dragon. And he played one of the Ninja Turtles in the original live version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then in the second movie, he actually came out of the turtle. I think he was Donatello in that one, and then he came out of that, and he played actually a character outside of that wasn't a turtle in the second movie. So. The sequel to the Ninja Turtle, so, and then did a lot of stuff, a lot of fight scenes, stunt work, that kind of stuff, and then later on became a fighter. Won a lot of his bouts, but I met him in 1988, and it was going to be fun to bring some of my memorabilia from the National Junior Olympics, in which I took a silver medal. Now, I will say that it was an exhibition sport up until just recently, just the recent Olympics. It was an exhibition sport, and now it's they've kind of legitimized it a little bit. But yeah, I think, and I didn't have to, I was in a category that was like, at my age, I was slender and small for my age, so it was kind of that thing where I didn't have to fight 30 people to get to a silver medal, so don't, it's, and but it was fun. It was fun. I had a good time. It would have been fun to be able to take some of these things and say, hey, you were here and I got to shake your hand. And now I'd get to ask you on the panel about some things. But I think Gary Bostwick was coming back, Brad from Rocky Horror, well, let's see. It's a good thing that I'm kind of being kind of restrictive on money, because it's priorities, and that's something else. Isn't it nice to know that someone that doesn't even have a lot of money, and I don't on any given day, I don't have a lot of money, but I'm able to have a little bit to save for when I want to do something. If I can't be traveling all over the world like all the time, like like I would love to be, I can take the occasional vacation. And that's what most people do, you know? I want to. Mm. You know, in Greek mythology, there's a goddess called the Triformis. You may know her in some circles as Maiden, Mother, and Crone, but she's also Luna, Hecate, Diana. I don't know which or by which name or something like that, but I think Luna would be like the younger version, and then you have Diana being kind of like the mother figure, and then Hecate, of course, being like the wise crone, the goddess of it all, or whatever. So, but there's different schools of thought. There's a actress, you may know her as the French student in I want to say Better Off Dead or something like that, the John Cusack movie. Uh, anyway, but she was in. She did like some TV movies and everything, and then she did a couple of theatrical releases, and then I think she married a De Laurentiis, one of them, you know, because they were producing the movies and everything. So that's kind of cool. But Diane Franklin is her name, and she was in a teen movie, not a teen movie, a TV movie called Summer Girl in 1981 or 1982, called Summer Girl. I want to say 1982. 1982. It feels about right. And it aired right around the time that Amityville 2, The Possession, was in theater. So she had a major hit that year on TV, and a pretty big hit among genre fans anyway for Amityville 2. And which I think is probably, it's dated by today's standards. But as far as the Amityville movies go, Amityville 2, The Possession is probably the best of the Amityville genres. There's the original with Margot Kidder and James Brolin, and that was the original walls, blood pouring from the walls, which in the book, I read the book, was a black goo. It wasn't a blood. So, and then the whole, like, the well with so anyway. And then, of course, later on, Diane Franklin came back with, the Amityville 2, The Possession was sort of the story of the DeFeo, the original family in the house, but they, for a lot of reasons, had to change the name. And basically just, we can tell this story, but we'll dramatize it so much that it's unreal. But it kind of exploits a real tragedy, which was probably not supernatural at all. Probably had a lot to do with drug addiction and family abuse trauma coupled with drug addiction, and just a family in crisis, and then just things explode, and that's probably closer to what happened. Even though Ron DeFeo has been interviewed several times and said that no, it was a supernatural. I'm hearing voices. Well, yeah, when you do dope and you're schizophrenic because of the dope or whatever, and you have accumulating mental illnesses, yes, you will hear voices, and some of them will sound demonic or whatever. So yeah, whatever. Some of us have been there. Some of us have not. But yeah, you will. Yeah, that's why I don't do drugs. Makes me crazy. Okay. Not enough to kill anybody, but you never know. I don't want to risk it. Okay, so she did that movie, Amityville 2, The Possession, and then just a few years ago, she came back, and she was like, we're doing this, but this time instead of playing the daughter, she played the mother, and they actually did tell sort of a version of the DeFeo family story of Amityville. A little bit more, hey, these weren't just people that moved in, it was a family home. And and Burt Young comes back and does a little bit as the father-in-law or something like that, and it was kind of weird, and they kind of explore a little bit of, hey, there was some weird stuff going on, there was so how did I get on the topic of Diane Franklin? Yes, I can tell you. Looking at this moon, the movie Summer Girl. She was a girl they brought in for the summer to be the nanny for the children, and in the interview she was somewhat dowdy, and then when they went to pick her up, it was like holy shit, uh, but they had already hired her and everything, so she went from being like okay, yeah, this mousy little thing to a little hot tamale, so to speak. But they brought her back, and she lived with the family, and she kind of went, you know, bonkers. This was uh, the subtext, but not really too much of a subtext, is the fear of parents letting other people raise the children, and what can happen if the two income family, and someone can't be at home with the children, uh, and they have to have a nanny and stuff like that. That they're going to be, or you know, the fear of having someone else help raise your children, and the economics of the time where more families were the both parents working and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, yeah, and that movie Summer Girl, and maybe that's the one I'll go in there and kind of look if I can find it, because I remember Diane Franklin being just batshit bonkers, and she towards the end of the movie, it's like she had this whole thing about the moon goddess. She was, just like, wow, was she just crazy about this moon goddess towards the end? The talk and the dialogue and stuff as the movie was approaching a climax. Summer Girl, have you seen it? Uh, if so, let me know. Check it out. Okay, we're gonna go inside. My dinner's about ready. I'm gonna play it. Actually, I'm not gonna. Yeah, we'll see. I'll just show it. It's some chicken and pasta. Uh, hang on. Okay, so while this is not exactly fresh for me, like it's but it's fresh food. But what I mean is, I have this type of thing often on my diet breaks, which this month I've decided, keto, but be strict with it. But also, if I'm gonna break the diet, break it with something that I thoroughly enjoy. Well, yesterday we had a Unity Day, and that was, for one of my 12-step fellowships. It's the World Unity Day, so everybody, yeah, whatever. So everybody everywhere that's part of this thing, they were doing something, and food is a big part of it. So not a good time to diet, and then I have my doctor's appointment tomorrow, so it's like, oh, well, I may as well just go ahead and do what I do. But today, this is literally the first meal. I pretty much fasted all day, um, because if you know anything about me, I sleep during the day. But one of the things is I need to get a good night's sleep. And so on a diet break, if I do have carbs hit me in a very satiating way that lets me want to take a nap, makes me want to sleep a little bit. Um, so, yeah, it's kind of like when you have people come over to your house, and you think of L-tryptophan for the turkey. A lot of times is the enzyme in that turkey that kind of makes you a little drowsy, and there is some truth to that. That does have that effect, but not nearly as much as the amount, say, on a Thanksgiving dinner, of the carbohydrates that we typically take in. Big scoops of mashed potatoes, rice, pasta, all that kind of stuff. So what happens is, yeah, we want to lay up and get, fat, dumb, and happy, take a nap, on Thanksgiving. It's to sit around and watch a football game or whatever, but someone's going to unbuckle uh, their belt and let their pants stretch open, and lay back and take a nap or whatever. In my place, I have like couches all over, couches in the by the like, look right here, right beside my dining room. There's couches, and then recliners, and then I've got a couple of couches in my bedroom, and then I've got a spare bedroom that, so if people are over and they need to take a nap before they drive off, that's cool, whatever. Mm. I don't actually know I'm doing for the holidays this year. Um, um, I may or may not have that big party, or I may or may not host it here. I may look somebody up and say, hey, can we do a party, but can we do it at your place? I'll still sponsor it. I'll still bring all the food and everything. But so check this out. This is a pasta that's stuffed with meat, right? But check this out. Let me say, is this that's stuffed with meat? There's a pasta here. There's some of them that are stuffed with cheeses. I mixed it up. I combined the two bags. What does that tell you? Eh, here we go. Tells you that I'm gonna be eating pasta for quite a while. Um, but you cook pasta and you actually can freeze this. You can cook them and even in a sauce, and you can freeze it and then bring it out if you need to. You know, you don't want to leave it in the refrigerator too long. The chicken, nothing to it. Glass Pyrex, leg quarters, um, um, Italian herbs. I used paprika. I used basil, uh, tarragon, and I used accents for the saltiness if I wanted to add a little salt or whatever. So instead of table salt, because it's supposed to be healthier. We'll see. But and then I'm gonna taste this right now. So let's see. Um, there's no salt on this right here. There's probably salt all the way through this pasta, just in the way that they made it. But I'll have to start looking. Can I get these stuffed pastas with a low salt content or something? I don't know. But damn, are they delicious. There were some people over here for dinner last time, and somebody was asking for like paper towels, and I was like, I got like 160 of some of the most awesome red satin napkins, and everybody just wants a paper towel. Okay. And that's one of the things you can do if you really want to worry about it. Like let the skin stay on the chicken, and if you want a taste of the skin, that's fine and everything. But you don't have to eat the whole thing if you're trying to cut a little fat out of your diet too. Yeah, just you know. A lot of people would say just go with the boneless, skinless chicken breast, and you can do that. But I really love the flavor of a dark meat chicken, and this is great. This is great. So this chicken, the skin is crispy. I'm gonna taste some of the skin because who am I kidding? I'm gonna eat the whole damn thing. But that's what the statin's for, I guess. I don't know. I'm terrible. Such a backslider when it comes to health food. Now, honestly, I actually haven't really worried about low fat as much as I should. I've been focused on sticking with meats and going lean and everything like that. But I am getting at that position in my life where I've been fortunate enough not to have blood clot issues, which I've learned can be responsible for so many other related secondary issues, just blood clots throughout. That, wow, what can happen, that, okay, so now I need to kind of work my way into healthier. So I'm going to try to think about, oh Lord, I don't want to say it because I don't want to make the commitment. I need to try to worry about having leaner, fats in my diet. Learning about which cholesterols are healthy. There's a type of cholesterol that's very healthy because it I was explaining this that I likened it to oil, and the reason why is I went to the military. I don't know anything about oil that much, but I know that they'll take like one type of oil and they'll move it through a pipe, and then they'll use a little bit of another type of uh, something that they'll push through that same pipe, a chemical, a type of oil meant to clean away the first oil that went through the pipe, and it's called a mouse, and they'll send that through. And then they'll send us the second type of oil. Uh, so they can use the same pipeline to send different grades of oil. And so the healthier cholesterol is kind of like that mouse that, they call a mouse. It's a small little bit of oil. And this is in the military, the army. I don't know if that's professional terms all the way through the oil industry. In Louisiana, I should know something about it, but I don't. Um, but yeah. So that's kind of what cholesterol, what the good type of cholesterol does, is it kind of clears your your vessels, your blood vessels, of types of cholesterol that cause plaque buildup and everything. As far as I know, now I'm not a nutritionalist, but that's one of the things I'm going to be talking about. I want to talk about those things with my doctor. I already know that I need to cut back on this, but this is kind of like one of these things. What I'm going to do, because I'm going on a trip in a couple of weeks, I'm really going to allow myself to, enjoy what I enjoy, and then I'm going to kind of work on gaining information and rebooting what I do as far as food goes. So that's something going into October. We should see a change right in time for Halloween, huh? But anyway, yeah. Let me taste this. Hold on. I know this looks terrible. There's like a dead bird carcass on my plate, but it's delicious. Okay, so it does get kind of crispy. And I took some of the broth from the chicken. It's a good way to get some chicken broth from a pan like this. You could like render it and save it if you want to use it for other things like soups or whatever. But basically, come on. Okay. The seasonings that I used are so wonderful, and that MSG, it's there as that flavor enhancer, but it does, and maybe because I used just a little bit, it does not have that powerhouse salt flavor that people sometimes would just get like a table salt and just pour it all over their food, and then pepper and pour it all over there. It's like, does everything have to taste like salt and pepper? So I used, yeah, so I'm going to work with moving towards more salt-free blends when I'm cooking. And if it's something like this in the pasta or something, I'll look for lower sodium and everything. But um, you know mainly what I want to do is I don't want to add salt. uh, by that I mean table salt. Even salt substitutes are, um, scientifically they're called a salt. They're the result of a blending of an acid and a base, and what happens is what's left over, what is yielded after the chemicals, uh, vaporize and everything. What's left is the salt. So, um, what anyone it's like in middle school chemistry, you learn that. Some of you who have better educational systems probably learned that in elementary school. We didn't discover that until like maybe seventh or eighth grade or something. I think it was seventh grade when we started looking at that kind of stuff. I don't know, whatever. Um, I think here's the thing about me. I think I would have loved to explore science more. I know that when I was in cosmetology, what I really loved was the chemistry aspect of it. At the time that we were studying, There was a big part of the chemistry that a lot of people did not like. I loved it. And I really think as a student, when I was a young kid, we would get into studying science, but it wasn't priority. Like, and I really think that, and it took so long. They would stay on this one, like this earth science, and they would do it like all, both semesters, you know, 9 or 10 months of just talking about the earth. And that's great. I really feel like, and it took so long, they would stretch it out. I really felt like science is one of those things that I would have enjoyed if the pace had been picked up, you know. And that may be, some of my early, you know, this part they never quite gave me. They didn't give me the attention deficit, but I certainly do have those uh, those elements to my experience when you get these things in school where they used to say I couldn't pay attention. And they used to say to me, boy, we're going to get you some slow down pills. And, it was a matter of just focusing and staying attention and everything. So it was just, yeah, I did get distracted a lot. And, and I remember being in first grade and this teacher who I didn't dislike, uh, from her classes in geography, talking about America, I really got my very first sense of American patriotism, American pride, and that never left me. It just got into me and stuck with me. So I thank her for that. But also every other day, she was dragging me out to that hallway to paddle me. Sometimes right in front of my sister. She'd call my sister, disrupt my sister's classes to come, whatever. And I thought, baby, what is going on? Like, why don't you? I guess my parents did not know this was going on because they would not have tolerated me getting paddled like every other day or something like that. I think, so be careful, parents of your young children, when you give your teachers permission for carte blanche to do what they need to do as far as corporal punishment with your students, because sometimes your teacher's idea of, you know, corrective circumstances may be different than yours. You know, um, but anyway, yeah. And this went all the way through my, say, I just talking now. I digress and get distracted. It's just the way that my mind works. I go off on different things, different tangents, and it means that when I give a speech or something for any sort of purpose, it's good to have like notes to stay on point. It's okay to give a side note, but my side notes turn into side stories all on their own. Okay, so anyway, I think that if the science had moved a lot faster, that I would have really enjoyed it a lot more and probably would have went more into that direction because I love chemistry. Um, I don't think I ever could have gotten into the point of like injecting with needles, like little animals. I wouldn't have wanted to do animal testing or human testing of like, I don't like the idea of causing anything like that, any sort of discomfort or pain or something. Um, but to work with chemistry, I think I would have enjoyed it. Okay, but then I had so many other interests. I also was heavily into, like it would be so much fun to be an attorney. Of course, we only had the TV uh, court shows of the 80s that for my examples for that, whatever. But whatever. The very first thing I wanted to be, really, these emerged at the same time. A writer, which I am. You'll be seeing that coming. So I was going to mention my book. It's ready to go. I have to. I'm going to wait and see if there's any sort of addition that I want to put into it after this cruise that I'm going to take. I'll tell you more about that in a second too. The book, not the cruise. You've heard enough about that. probably heard enough about the book too. But yeah, and then so I wanted to be a writer, but at the same time, there was a guy that came and spoke with our fourth grade class, and this fourth grade guest was a social worker, and he just kind of talked about I'm a friend and I help people or whatever. So, um, and he seemed like a just a real straight up good guy. I liked it. Now, um, which would have been helpful in the third grade, Miss Henderson, and she had a teacher's aide or assistant. I don't know why, Miss Henderson. And then there was, she got married and she became Miss Faison. She was, I didn't dislike her as a teacher, but she was very physical with the students. Like she once took this young girl and grabbed her shoulders and shook her and walked her back and slammed her back into the edge of a counter. Uh, we had this boy, Dennis, who was in our class. She um, beat him with a yardstick and broke it into like three pieces over his back. And this is a, I mean, uh, this teacher was horrible, uh, and a lot of teachers will like pinch and poke or whatever for attention. Uh, this teacher, it was horrible. Um, so yeah, and she just my parents were newly separated, so I felt really awkward talking at all, and I wouldn't because my mother was going through finding her way as a single mother in the job and everything, and so I just didn't want to. I didn't want to burden her anymore, but we really should have gotten some kind of attention on that kind of stuff. It maybe would have uh, resolved a lot of things going on. Uh, um, but yeah, also at the time, that was just kind of the thing. Like you did, it did not matter. You really did just get your ass beat if you got in trouble. Now, my parents, not really. Like sometimes we'd get the spanking, sometimes we'd get the corporal discipline, but they were mostly they would talk to us, and maybe the talks would go on way longer than necessary because they were venting a little bit or whatever. Also, parenting and child rearing, it's very difficult, very hard. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's challenging. And I think that today there's a lot of help and there's a lot more support that people can really get together and kind of focus on and do things, uh, you know, uh, and good for that. Okay, so where was I going with this? Oh yeah, I wanted to be a writer, wanted to be a social worker, uh, and the writing. So I've talked about my book that I decided 30 years ago that if I ever did a book of poetry, I was going to call it "Dancing on the Lifeline." I just kind of liked that because it kind of talked about life. It's life experience. Well, it's not so much, I think, a life experience, my personal life experience that inspires these poetry. I think it's more like a collection of all the thoughts and ideas of stories that I want to write. And they always start out as little small ideas, and then I build poetry around them. But over my lifetime, these are the things that would have inspired some of my stories, because I always start out with an idea, and I used to sit down and write out the story, but a lot of times there was always I'd always throw in some poetry and everything, song, whatever. I was always, who doesn't sit around and make up little songs to sing to themselves or whatever. So, damn, that's good pasta. So, um, that's what this is, and so it's everything that I would want to write about, from pieces that I hope are inspirational to maybe just some observances in the world that I live in. Character studies. They're like, these are stories that I would write, characters that I would write about. So it's not so much my life in poetry or whatever, because that would just be too grandiose even for me. Uh, Especially since I've not really like accomplished anything other than the breathing. But so I feel like biographies are about like you know extraordinary things. So if something happens and I become extraordinary in some sort of way other than just the fabulousness of myself, something that's extraordinary to the world, then yeah, maybe I would do a biography. But that's you have to be ambitious to do that, and I'm not. So anyway, yeah, there are other things. I'm very into Gothic poetry, and I got this from reading a lot of Edgar Allan Poe as a child. I say a lot. It's probably the same stuff that you guys read, H.P. Lovecraft, that kind of stuff. Short story and Gothic, and a lot of. So there's some poetry that will reflect, the horror stories that I intend to write and put out too. Yeah, I would have done this for probably about 10 or 15 years ago, but I just kind of wanted to wait until the time seemed right. It's very hard to break into writing professionally. You don't make a living at it mostly. You really don't. It's everything is visual media now, and there's just there are some people that do, but it's like you can have a hit. You can be like, great, here's a book, and it's gonna catch on, and people are gonna love it. But to actually be like the greats of our time or the times that came before us, uh, Stephen King, we everybody knows him, and Dean Koontz writes in his vein. Tabitha King, and now I think Stephen King's children. I think they're writing. They're his adult children. They're writing. So it's like, how about that? The boy that inspired the novel Pet Cemetery is grown up and is now writing. How about that? That's so fun. But it's like most people don't get that. Most of the writing today is screenplay. They're writing for screenplay and everything that I see. The most successful stuff. So I didn't. It's like, okay, well, there's no rush on this. It's not going to make anybody rich. It's not going to even like whatever. Like, and this first one is going to be a collection of poetry. But nobody really reads poetry. I don't expect it to sell. Uh, but the reason why I can do this is because there is online tutelage as far as how to use, uh, the Amazon publishing, the self-publishing, and what programs to use to help do that, and so with that knowledge is out there, I'm going to be allowed to, I'm going to be able to self-publish, because I don't think that, it's you just send out manuscripts or take them and push them and say, hey, you got to do this. It's really hard to break in uh, to professional writing. So the only thing to do is to just write it and put it out there. I have bought um, short story collections from coffee shops and little books and everything like that. So whatever. Um, but cool. So thank you guys, your subscribers. I think there's about 302, 303 of you now, by the way, and I appreciate that. I was stuck at 298, 297 for the long time. I'd go up to 299 and then I'd lose a subscriber here or there or whatever. And I was like, am I ever going to break that 300? The reason why I think this is a good number that I was kind of aiming for, although I'd love more people to subscribe, and I really want to interact with you guys too. But believe me, I do. I go on other people's YouTube channel and their content and everything, and I do comment, and I want to make human connection. That's why I do this. But you know, uh, t- uh, and really to share about my love of Shreveport, Northwest Louisiana area, but really just to connect with people. But also, yeah. So, and I love that. I love that. But my very first subscriber, the name was Kaylee, and yeah, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. I love making those connections. I hope she's still out there. I haven't heard from her in a while, but if you're out there, Kaylee, just give me a thumbs up or something. But my work, my videos here, they do get a little redundant. I need to clear this table off, by the way. Yes, it becomes a catch-all, but I've emptied everything out of my bags, basically. I need to find a place in town where I can take this watch. It was a fossil. We used to be able to take it to the fossil store, but our fossil store is no longer here. So where do I get a watch battery or whatever? So um, incidental. I procrastinate on the little things like that. Okay, so um, but this first publishing that I'm going to be doing that I always wanted to do is going to be about just everything. It's going to be very. It's the only thing that is in it is that's somewhat autobiographical is that these are poems based on characters that I want to write, situations that I want to write, some loose observation. Even though it's poetry, a lot of it's fiction. Like I have never snorted cocaine off of a dead hooker's belly. That was just a joke somebody made some time ago, and I was like, wow. I could make a song out of that or whatever, just a real ridiculous stuff. So, um, some very stupid satirical stuff. And that poetry is right next to, in the same volume, about a spiritual awareness, of a holistic experience, this beautiful and belief in providence and God. So there's all this, so it's kind of like everything. It is kind of like what we as humans have, which is a wonderful array of experiences and emotions. We don't we're not just this one thing all of our lives, all the way through. We have many experiences. We have many different types of thoughts. We have, many different levels of humor, from good-natured humor to like a wicked, sardonic sense of humor. And then there's that part of us that's mean. We get that mean humor, who's never thought of, getting revenge on that coworker that got on your nerves or something like that. There's a movie on YouTube it's a 45, 50-minute movie called How to Get Revenge. And it's kind of scripted and played out like it's an infomercial on how to get revenge, on a general day of life. So there's some of that kind of humor in here. Actually, the host of that was Linda Blair. So How to Get Revenge, featuring Linda Blair. It is hilarious. And it came out right around the same time as Repossessed. She was doing more comedic stuff. She was just trying to find her place, and she was good. She had her brand and everything like that. Uh, yeah. And then, she could come back into acting full time. At this point, I really feel that she could, because there's enough name value just in what she does. But she's so focused in doing what she wants to do with animal rescue and running her pit bull shelter, and just kind of like educating the rest of the world. I shouldn't say this and move away from I eat animals, so it's like, but I love them too. So yeah, but not just her animal welfare, but the way that she cares for people on the planet. Her philosophy, and I think it's really kind of cool. The better we treat our animals, the better we treat ourselves, the better we treat the planet. It's kind of like that kind of thing. So, whatever. Okay, I have gone on for about an hour. I'm going to say, like I said, this meal right here, this is nothing that I haven't had recently. It's nothing new to it. There's no recipe. Take your pastas. The cool thing is mix them up. Have a little cheese pasta. Have a little bit of meat pasta. Kind of toss them in together, you know. And then, of course, one jar, and this was um, an Alfredo sauce that as like a bacon flavored Alfredo sauce. It's not real bacon, I'm sure, but but yeah. Um, and then of course there's enough of it that I'm not going to have to cook for a couple of days. And then I like to rotate out my leftovers, and these will freeze. These will freeze in an airtight situation. So one thing before I go, when you do eat, please take time to enjoy your food. Sit down and try not to scarf it. I got into this habit, this fast life, especially when I was um, driving a cab. But I think from teenage years on, especially boys, we just like inhale like food, like take the time to enjoy the food. If you're with people, it's going to give you time to talk. That's something that really doesn't happen and hasn't for a long time, sitting around the family table with food and talking and everything. That's something that I really, outside of um, outside of the occasional movie or TV show, I have not really seen that. You know, uh, except for maybe on holidays or something like that, or dinner parties or something like that. But just people at home, and I'm a single person. I would love to. Uh, I love to sit down at a table and have a conversation. But even when I've had people come over, it's like, oh, well, now we got to watch a movie and this and that. So we're sitting around facing, and I just love just sitting at a table having food and talking and enjoying. And that is something that I don't see a lot of, and I would love a lot more of it. You know, um, I have a friend, a married couple, Jody and Randy. They'll get together and they'll do something, and they'll have people come over, and it's sitting around the table and everything like that. And that's kind of cool. Um, I'd love to do more stuff like that. But regardless of, there's so much benefit, not just the socialization, but if you're living alone like I am, just sitting down and enjoying your food, take the time to do that, because slower eating and slower, means that your body can efficiently process the food better into nutrients, right? So it's better to do that. Okay, so that's my food advice and a bunch of other stuff. Coming up on an hour. Bon appetit, love and light. God bless. I love you. Good night.